Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of RailCat Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savetich, and we have five players signed with the RailCats this week, 4 of which are returning. 5 is new to the RailCats, but not new to the American Association. This was a good week, especially a bunch of returners. We see Jesus Marriaga and probably one of the hardest workers in the room, Castillo, also return for the 2024 season. And a handful of others at bullpen arms, especially, are coming along and fielding, and may answer some questions with how maybe fielding and where the lineup's going to kind of adjust. I mean, it's still one of those. I know it keeps coming back. Like, you look at the numbers, you look at the players that are returning, and you're like, oh, this could be the year. This could be the positive thing that we're looking for the RailCats, and it started that belief is starting to creep back into my head and to the belief of what they can do. I know, we're returning some of these players, and you're like, well, they were on last year's team and that didn't succeed. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of the whole situation of what really happened last year, because I mean, I don't know if it's a combination of that. The other teams last year, like Lake Country, after they made the coaching change, they just changed their whole aspect and was just overall really good. And I just don't know if the RailCats quite gelled together and were more consistent throughout. It's just one of those, when the pitching did well, the hitting didn't do so well. The hitting did well, and the pitching wasn't there. Like, I'm not sure. And then we had the issue inside the locker room. So I just last year's just so hard to, it was a positive thing coming into it. Everyone and their mother's like, yeah, this is going to be a good team. This team's probably going to make the playoffs this year. They should make the playoffs, and they don't. But I mean, when we're looking here, throughout, I'll get into Guillermo Gonzalez, who we signed on January 22nd. He is 22 years old. He did play with Cleburne last year. He played, I believe, 80 games. He slashed a 277, 368, 499, and OPS of 817. Like, no brainer. Like, yeah, okay, the batting average quite, isn't necessarily there, but I mean, it's above average. I mean, realistically, when you kind of look at the average, I would say in the American Association, you're kind of looking in that 260 to 270 range. I would have to actually do the numbers, and I just don't do the numbers. But his OPS is almost, is over 800. Like, this is a player that we're who's going to get on base, and when he does hit, he hits for power, and it may not necessarily, how should I say? So I'll read the rest of it. He scored 38 runs, 76 hits, 13 doubles, 2 triples, 10 home runs, 36 RBIs. He was caught stealings. He stole 6 bases, caught 4 times. He walked 34, struck out 48. His runs created was 44.18. He was 6th on the RailCats, which would have, or 6th on Cleburne, which would have been 4th on the RailCats. So what we're going to get with this guy is an overall producer. I really think that him and probably Marriaga are going to battle for that 4th, that cleanup hitter role. But this is the type of player I think the RailCats were necessarily missing in their lineup last year, was someone who, if someone was on base, is able to drive them in. And not necessarily going to be home runs. Like, okay, 10 home runs isn't necessarily a lot in 80 games, however that ropes itself out to. He's going to give you home runs, but he's going to give you the ability to hit doubles. He's going to give the triples. He's going to hit the ball, and he's going to drive in runs. I mean, yeah, they're not the crazy numbers of what, LG Castillo put in, what Gio Diaz, what Marriaga, what they as far as like hit totals, but he's that type of player that we've been kind of missing, like that player that Sam Abbott was supposed to be, was a guy that um, may not have the eye popping batting average, but when you need him in a key situation, he's going to produce some runs, and he's going to do it in multiple different ways. And I really think, you know, when you're playing in Cleburne, that's more of a hitter's ballpark necessarily, where you're probably going to hit the ball further, and it's going to not further, but it's going to go over the fence more often, and you know, maybe that isn't ideal for, you know, him only having 10 home runs, but realistically, is that the RailCats formula has been ever since they've been in the league, realistically, to hit home runs? No, it's been to play the field type, and he's going to be that player that's going to play the field. I would see that his triple numbers are probably going to go up, and maybe his double numbers, and that, you know, being a wider field, I just think having that time in Gary. I wonder, I really haven't gone through and looked at like when he played at Gary. I would have to go back to I haven't pulled up, but now I have to go through all this random stuff, and instead of them bringing up his player profile, they're not going to have it because he didn't play with Gary last year, so I have to go to Cleburne and so on and so forth. The point streak is still annoying on that aspect of it. Like, I just really, really wish they would change some of this stuff. But getting into what I'm going with is he's going to be, you know, he's probably going to be the catcher, or maybe not necessarily, you know, with Andres Noriega. I don't, you know, they're both the same age, and they both kind of have the same repertoire to a certain extent. I would have to go back and really look at Noriega, but I just think this is going to bolster a spot in the RailCats that can kind of been lacking last year. You know, as I know, most fans really like Thomas Gurley. I really like Thomas Gurley. I thought he was a great catcher. He defensively, he was very good. Offensive, when it was there, He could give you the numbers. Then Seth Cadell came in, and it was more of, well, his defensive numbers weren't quite, well, he popped off the chart right away. He threw a handful of runners out with a great arm. The batting wasn't quite there, what we weren't looking for, but then he would shock and awe you with home runs and grand slams, and it would just, you kind of would forget about the 0 for 15s, you know, streaks that he was going for. Wasn't really producing in that offensive role. But I just think especially with Quintana, he gives you that. I'll go through his defensive stats. I just want to look up, you know, what he did necessarily last year, with Cleburne, as I'll have to see when they played Gary what he did in Gary. If that, no, point streaks, my lord, point streaks, you guys do not make anything easy to navigate this. I need stats. He, you know, just looking at Quintana's number, I mean, realistically, Cleburne, you know, most of the time that they were, you know, he was in the bottom of the order, but most of the time, and he's at 277, bottom of the order-ish, in the stats department, but everyone else was close to 290, 300. So that just kind of shows you how well Cleburne did themselves in that situation. Let me see. He's got to play a couple at Gary, right? Yeah. So the times that he played at Gary, I really wish it wasn't at the bottom of because it's kind of hard to line up the stats. I mean, there's a couple times, you know, one game he went 2 for 3, 1 for 3, a 2 for 5, kind of efforts. That's the stats don't line itself up very well. He did decently well in Gary, I would say. Nothing like eye popping, but it's still to the point to where, you know, it's kind of hard. I think him being and Gary was going to give him more opportunities to not necessarily see more home runs, as I believe he I have him. He's a right-handed batter. If he was left-handed batter, I would say potentially with them pulling the bullpens in, that he would have more. But that's going off of what what I have here. But defensively, he played 13 games at base. He had 1 error on 89 chances, for a fielding percentage of 988. He played 64 as a catcher, had 8 errors on 530 chances, fielding percentage of 985. He caught 14 runners stealing, and he had 95 runners steal on him, for a 13% caught stealing ratio. Really, I mean, 13% is, what Thomas Greeley was doing. So, like, that's what we're used to seeing, with, especially nowadays, with the pitch clock and everything else. Like, you're going to need that defensive catcher that's able to throw runners out. He's going to be able to do that. I know it's not an eye-popping number, but 13% is pretty average, just kind of looking through everywhere. But this is where, I think the RailCats were plagued last year, was having people that were able to produce the lineup depth is what I'm guessing. And we're getting that. We're finally getting the lineup depth that I think we lacked last year. I think this year you're going to be able to, okay, you have a double header. You're going to be able to swap out catcher 1A for catcher 1B. And we don't know who 1A or 1B is going to be, but that's what's going to show up on the paper, what it looks like right now. You have a catcher. They're almost similar, identical as far as defensive, offensive, and being able to play in different situations. So I know that, like Noriega, his numbers aren't really there necessarily. I don't think he has like the eye-popping numbers, but he'll be good defensively. And so if that's a situation where you're going to need a good defensive catcher and you need some power in the lineup or whatever the case. Like I said, I don't know how it's all going to fill itself out. I just think that with his ability, he's able to be a DH role. He's able to play first base. He's able to play catcher. So I could really see him playing a bulk majority of the games this year. And not just all at catcher. I could see him playing around the 65 to 70 mark that he did last year. But I could see majority of the time that he's probably going to be a DH role. And, depending on, who they get at third and who we sign at first, he could be split majority of the time at first or just be that DH role that the RailCats have failed to find in the past. And I just don't think there has been that guy that's taken over a DH role. And I know maybe majority of even me, the DH role not really being a position of importance. But you're starting to see that change in baseball in general, just because with the National League adopting it, it's becoming a role that you're going to need to fill and to have success. Like, it's going to be a main part of your lineup. Like, yeah, the DH role, at the time when it was just in the American League portion of it, was it a benefit that the American League got over the National League? Maybe at home they did, but I don't really think that was a big event. I think even at that, it was still a bigger adjustment for the National League, or a bigger adjustment for American League when they played at National League, because they're not used to that kind of style of baseball. And now we're getting into, well, this is the style of baseball that's going to be played, and the pitchers don't have to worry about hitting, so they're going to be so focused on just pitching. And you're going to have those guys that are going to be really good at hitting and not so good on the field. And those are the type of players that you're going to need to fill that DH role. And I just don't think, especially nowadays, I don't think the American Association is going to quite see those players yet, because I have a feeling that affiliate ball, the MLB teams, are going to hoard those players for right now, because there's so few lack of them. And you're not going to see that trickle down until it becomes more of a solidifying role necessarily, that you'll start seeing more of those players. So right now we're going to get those players that can play defense and are good at hitting. It's just going to be a matter of time when we get that player that's not going to be the best at fielding and is probably not going to field, and he's just going to be that DH role. But I think that's where the DH role is going to come into play, and the RailCats just really haven't had that really for a while. like I said, he'll be probably a middle of the lineup hitter, maybe a little bit more towards the top because he may not have quite the power numbers, but it's going to be a battle there. It's so hard to predict what someone's numbers are going to be when you only see 1 year of them and you look at their baseball reference and they're jumping from league to league. You just don't know what type of player you're going to get when you first sign them up. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big thing. The other big news out of that day was that we signed 4 year for his 4th year, Jesus Marriaga, 2023 All-Star. In my eyes, he's the face of the RailCats. I just think that he's the longest tenured here. Last year, you saw the league, ever since the World Baseball Classic, putting him up on the poster child, basically, like he was going to kind of be that guy. And I really think he was plagued by being on the RailCats last year, that he didn't get those praises that he should. I mean, he is by far, I think personally, the best center fielder in the league. He's got the arm, he's got the speed. He reads plays very well, and I mean, I know he had a handful of errors last year. I think he had like two or three errors, but like one error was a ball that it was like an in between ball, and it bounced out and it hit off him. They gave an error, like, and I think another one was like a throwing error, whatever the case may be. Like, if those are the type of errors that you're committing, where it's like it could have gone either way, or you're trying to make a play and you just end up throwing it away, or whatever the case may be. Those are the type of errors that you'll take. You won't take the type of errors that, you misread the ball or you're underneath it and it drops right through you. Like, those are the type of errors that, like, oh, come on now. Like, you should have made that. And he's that guy that's going to give that stability. He's all over the field. He wants the ball. He plays with that such a poise about himself, that his confidence, he's a big body. I'm still surprised he hasn't been there hasn't been a taste. Like, I would interest to know if anyone's has taken a ticket on Jesus Marriaga. Like, he is by far, looking at the roster, the best RailCat on this team. I just, now, prove me wrong, whoever else hears this, and if you're a player, prove me wrong, but I'm just saying, looking at his track record, looking at his stats, he's the most consistent, best player that we've had, and I just think that a lot of people are looking forward to seeing it. I am. I've ever since I've really started to, got into the RailCats and watched him play, like, there's just something special about him that it's just a shame that he doesn't get that opportunity. I really think it comes down to the power numbers with him. He has that big body, muscles. It looks like he should just be crushing balls all the time. He necessarily doesn't. He plays the game smart. And I think that's the one cunning thing that is one attribute that I really like about Jesus Marriaga, is his ability to understand the situation and not go, you know what, maybe I'm just going to try to swing for the fences. No, I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to take it the opposite way. I'm going to put it in between the center fielder and the right fielder. I'm going to score a couple runs, because that's just the type of player he is. And that's a lot of times what you see from this RailCats organization and the players you bring in. GOD's is a big one for that. I think Del Valle was one of those players. LG Castillo was one of those players that are able just to play the game correctly and understand the situation. I just think that's why Sam Abbott necessarily didn't work out, because he changed his swing, he changed everything else about himself, but he's swinging for the fences all the time, and I just don't think that's this type of style that Lamar's necessarily looking for. And I know you may say, well, look at the record, it doesn't mean anything. Well, I just, that the record and what you have on the field are two different. What you have, what you bring in, and what the production is two different values. What we have here, I just think that like I said, this is a whole we've discussed the whole season in general, and I think everyone now gets my point to kind of how I feel about it to a certain extent. I just think that he may have had Jesus Maria may have had a bit of a downish year. If I look at the 22, just look at his stats in general. That's not the one I was looking for. Right area, wrong selection. There we go. When he first came in 2021, He batted 80 games. He had a 284. Last year, he had that, I believe it was a visa issue, but when he came in, he played 71 games, had a 307. And last year, he batted 281. And that was a full 98 games. His average right now is a 290 in the 3 years. He has over 158 RBIs. He had 66 last year. You know, I think his strikeout numbers are a little bit too high. I think he was a little bit more impatient. I think this year, coming from the World Baseball Classic and not necessarily getting the hype on the offensive side, but the defensive side, I think there was like, I was really good here now. If I just come to the RailCats and I produce at a high level and I'm there, I think it was just one of those. You saw it a couple of times, the frustration, the pitches he normally doesn't swing at, he would swing at. So I think there was a little bit added pressure to him at the beginning of the season, than what we were kind of used to. If I kind of scroll down a little bit, let's see. I think we're right here. I mean, he started out hot. He wasn't hot. He wasn't getting, and I think later bit in towards the end of the season, he started to kind of pick it up. He kind of went through his spells of ups and downs, but I just really think he has that opportunity to really get there with it. Lamar Rogers had to say about Jesus. Jesus arguably the best center fielder in the league last season, leading our Cats team in almost every offensive category. I believe his overall physical ability and talent deserves an opportunity to return to MLB affiliate. He also emerged as a team leader late during the 2023 season. I think Jesus is now understanding his role with the team. I look for him to continue that leadership and build on the last season. I'm very happy to welcome Zeus back into our RailCats team. And before I get more into Jesus, this is what Lamar Rogers said about Guillermo. I forgot to mention this. Guillermo joins our RailCats team after posting his out offense and defensive numbers during his first season in the American Association. He provides roster versatility as both a catcher and a first base during the 2023 season as he develops a reputation for his towering home runs and gritty two-strike clutch hitting. So that kind of what I got into. I think the home runs might come there in Gary, or whatever the case, maybe not. I'm not sure. But just looking like at Jesus in general, I think he's finally starting to find his confidence. He might have not been able to emerge as a leader last year just because the people in the locker room. He's starting to figure that out now. I just think that this is the situation that he wants to be in. He's going to thrive in better. I think we're going to see more out of him this year, and I'm hoping. I don't want to say this. But, I just think my mind might change after I talk about what I'm going to talk about with the players that signed later in the week. But I know everyone is concerned about getting back to affiliate ball and striving for that. But I think once players understand their roles. You see this even in professional baseball or professional sports in general. Once you understand your role and once you fall into your role, the pressure comes off of you. You become more the player that you should be. You may not be, let's just take a pitcher, for example. You may want to be a starting pitcher, and it's just the higher you go up, the less successful you become, and you may get put into a reliever role, and you're succeeding there, but you're like, I still want to be a starting pitcher, and you try to get back there, and it just never returns, but then you get those players that are like, you know what, okay, I'll accept my role, I'll be my role, and you become a great reliever from that point or a great closer. But maybe once you finally succeed there, you become a starter. Like, it's such a baseball is such a team. It's a team sport, but it's an individual sport at the same time. You have 9 players out there on the field, and if one player makes a mistake, it may not affect you, necessarily, but the time that you get the ball, like it's all kind of on your portion of it. But I just think once players, especially maybe in the American Association at this time, accept the, you know what, maybe I'm not so much concerned about getting to the affiliate rank, but more concerned about just winning ball games and being myself. That's when players start to really figure it out and become themselves and are succeeding. And then that opportunity for the affiliate ball may come around. So I think that's what we're kind of going to start to see from him. He's older. The first couple years was I just got to press forward, I gotta succeed. It just never happens. And then you finally accept it, and then you accept it, and next thing you know, you're on a productive team, you're having productive numbers, you're winning games, and next thing you know, you're playing affiliate ball game. That's where I kind of see what's going to happen with Jesus Marriaga. Kind of looking at some of his stats last year, he played 98 games, 366 at bats, 500 or 52 runs, 103 hits, 22 doubles, 5 triples, 9 home runs, 66 RBIs. I was hit by 6 pitches, struck out 113 times, 32 walks, 28 stolen bases, 6 times caught stealing. He slashed 281, 362, 443, and an OPS of 805. He played 98 games in center field, had a fielding percentage of 992, and had 2 errors. His best offensive game was August 2nd, where the RailCats beat the Canaries 8-7 in 10 innings, where he hit the ball off that wall at home for the walk-off home run, or walk-off double that scored Will Decker. He went 3 for 4 in that game, 2 runs, 4 RBIs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, 2 home runs, a solo home run, and a 2-run home run. That, you look at his same, well, maybe he wasn't that productive, but then you look at, he goes, well, he led all teams in RBIs. He was doubling, led teams in RBIs at 66, doubles at 22, triples at 5. He was second in home runs and second in run created at 54.95. So, like, even though he had a down year, he was still one of the best players on the team, and it just shows. So I'm glad to have him back. He's a good piece center fielder that's going to be that steady force in the outfield. Then going ahead and looking at the January 25th, the RailCats signed 3 more players. LG Castillo, he's returning for his 3rd year. Jose Contreras, who is looking for his first full season with Gary, and then right-handed pitcher Joan Valdez, looking for his full 2nd season with the RailCats. These, I'm just trying to get my bearings in order here. Starting off with LG Castillo, and I forgot that he was mentioned that last year he did play with an injury. So 60 games that she was playing with an injury. Numbers may not have been what he necessarily wanted. I put out my article and may have got a little bit of backlash for it to a certain extent. But I mean, LG, his first year he came to the RailCats, numbers were off the charts good. I think he batted at 317. Let me just pull up last year's. 318, 47 games played. He had 31 runs, 61 hits, 13 doubles, 3 triples, 7 home runs, 37 RBIs, 14 walks, and so on and so forth. And then this year we have a full slate with him, and his batting average goes down to his 270. His doubles were the same. He doubled his triples. He only had 5 home runs, 49 RBIs. When I wrote my article, basically saying that he was going to be batting, anywhere from I think it was a 285 to 290. Not necessarily saying in that instance that, I was just taking what we've seen from the last 2 years and kind of averaging it out. And then, even the Baseball Reference, looking at his now I understand that Baseball Reference may not have every league that they played for, whatever the case may be, but overall, he's batting at 260. So, just looking at that portion of it, I thought it was a pretty high number to give, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that number. I don't think there's anything wrong with the player having a 290. I know everyone wants that 300 threshold. That's not what I'm saying. And he is a 300 hole threshold player that could reach that and can reach that, has the capability of reaching that. One of the hardest workers in the room. Fans love him. He's a great person, great personality. There's nothing wrong about him that deters me from anything from him. He is a great person, great player. I'm glad he's back with the team. There's nothing wrong with him at all. I like the guy. I want to meet the guy actually in person. I didn't know. I really haven't met a lot of players last year, just because sitting on the right field side of things, or right hand side of things, down the first base line, and not really interacting. That's partially my fault. Partially a little bit of my wife's fault. She's after the game. She's like, I want to go home. I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. You're my ride. You drove me here. I'm hoping this year might be a little bit different, but just looking at his numbers, outfielder, he made the All-Star game. He every right to make the All-Star game. I just really think that he was kind of suppressed a little bit in everyone's eyes, just because you had Gio Diaz, Jesus Marriaga, Del Valle was kind of, when he was hot, he was hot. Valera, when he was hot, he was good. I think LG played more of a consistent year this year. When you play only just under half the season, you could just be on a heater. And I just think that the consistency this year for LG, and me personally, I would rather see consistency than seeing high numbers one year and super low numbers the next year. And really, the numbers aren't that far off. Yeah, I know a 317 to 270 is a big gap, but it really, in all reality, it really isn't. I think he just came in and he was fully healthy, and forgetting that he wasn't healthy, it changes my aspect or my priorities on things. As okay, if he's fully healthy, he's going to be that 300 hitter. He was going to drive in runs. That's going to give you the home runs. He's going to give you that ability that we saw in the 2022 season and not in the 2023 season. I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, if he gives us a 285 to a 290 batting average and he's consistent all year round, me personally, I would rather take that than him starting, or any player starting at, you start the season off really hot where you have these stupid high numbers, and you start, the first 2 months of the season, you play half the season super high numbers, and the last half of the season you're just give me the consistency, because at least consistency you're going to provide every night, and you're going to provide what we need in the lineup every night, and be that guy you can rely on. If your consistency is batting a 320, give me the 320, or give me the 315, 317, give me that. If that's is going to be consistency. I'm just saying, when I make these articles, when I write this stuff down, it's so hard to judge. It's easier to judge a player like Jesus Marriaga, who's been with the team for 4 years or 3 years. You're able to look at his numbers, what he's done in the American Association. It's hard to judge players that haven't been in the American Association, or played a half a year in the American Association, and then they're coming in their full first year. You don't get a full picture, right? It's hard to get a full picture in these leagues, because most of the time you don't get a full picture, because they're if they're in the affiliate ball and they're jumping all around, the numbers aren't there. They're not consistent, and you're better able to paint a picture once you have a handful of 2 or 3 seasons fully in. I know that's not realistic, but whenever I'm making these articles, I don't ever mean to or podcast ever to insult anyone, to give anyone backhanded compliments, to be any sort of that situation. That's not what this is about. I'm not here to tear anyone down. I am strictly here. I am here to, one, help bring people to the RailCats. Two, help people understand what the American Association, or well, independent baseball is all about. And three, I just really like talking about sports, and I just, after COVID, I just never was able to, it never happened. I got a job, and I like the job that I have, and I don't necessarily want to change my lifestyle because of my job. I just don't get the opportunity to. It's going to be hard for me to, in the position I'm in at work, like, hard for me to leave and start somewhere else in the sports world, because not a lot of people understand that in media, you don't, in sports media, where you're starting out, you're not going to be making a lot of money. You put in a lot of time and a lot of hours, you're not going to make a lot of money. It's almost like the same thing with independent baseball. You're putting in the time, you're putting in the work, you're doing, and that's what this is all circling back around to why I want to do this, is so that I can help players potentially move on. But then I get the quote of, you're concerned, the quote basically, all I'm concerned about is a ring, the rest is eyewash. And then that started making me think, if that's your mindset, you are going to be a better player than you are the year before. If your mindset is, I want to help this team win this year, my thought process is, this player is working to worry about himself and the team, that, like, you're fully bought in at that point. You're fully bought into what Lamar Rogers is speaking. You're fully brought into the threshold of, I'm here to play baseball. I want to succeed in baseball. But if this is where I play baseball at, and I'm happy doing it, that's what I'm here for. Everything else, if I make affiliate ball, great. If I don't, not that big of a deal. I'm living here, living now. I'm concerned about making this team better, and that's the type of leadership that LG Castillo is going to give you. Everything that I'm talking about, the quote, LG Castillo, him, he wants to be that guy that wants to win. He cares less about everything else. He cares about his team, his brothers, and what he's going to do in that season to make the team better. And that's the type of player that you're going to get from LG. And I think that's the type of player that Jesus Marriaga is going to become. I think we're starting to grab those type of players. It's going to be a shame, because I think Gio Diaz was going to be that type of player, but he'd rather go and chase the next level, right? And that's fine. You want to go chase the next level. Go chase the next level. You want to make more money playing in another league, go make that. That is your choice. You do that. But I'm just saying, like, that what LG Castillo told me was, what that quote basically was, that everything else is eyewash. That just makes you appreciate the type of ball player he's going to be, and the type of player that the RailCats, what Lamar Rogers is looking for. Hard workers who buy into the program and just want to win baseball. They don't care about themselves, right? They care about themselves. They want to prove other people wrong, and that's what I told him. I said, I give numbers, I put averages out there. This is what I think, but this is the only time that I want you to prove me wrong. Like, this is the only time I would like to be proven wrong, right? If I look at a player and I say, yeah, he's gonna probably bat about 250. Not do much, and he looks me in the eye and says, I'm going to do better than what you told me, please do it. At the end of the season, said I batted a 333, had 26 home runs, and what you said are wrong. Prove me wrong, please. That's what I love. I love being proven wrong in this situation, because I'm just not like, I'm just gonna cover them and cover. No, I'm a fan. Like, each of these players I root for every single day, and it's just, there's players that you want to succeed. Now I'm just getting that aspect of, I want players to succeed. I want them to prove why why Lamar Rogers picked them, why they're playing for Gary. I want the fan base to be proud of the players that we have, and this is the type of stuff that fans aren't gonna get if they don't have the coverage. And this is what I want. I want the coverage of the players. I want them to tell their side of the story. I want the fans to go to the games and get that personality that may not necessarily be able to talk to the players, but they understand the players, so that when they have those conversations, they understand the players better and what their kind of drive is. So, like I said, I'm glad LG Castillo is back. He is a pillar of the team. He's going to continue to be a leadership in that locker room. He's going to put the work ethic in. He's going to give you everything that you need inside that locker room. So I know this podcast is going to be super long, but that's beside the point. We're going to go ahead and look at Jesus Contreras. Jose Contreras. Jesus criminally. He was an early season signing on July 6th. He played 36 games. He had 116 at-bats, 16 runs, 28 RBI or 28 hits, 5 doubles, 1 triple, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 7 stolen bases caught 4 times, 13 walks. Was hit by 4 pitches, had a batting average of 240 or slashed 241, 336, 407, and OPS of 741. He played 19 games last year at first, 2 at third, 1 at left, and he had a fielding percentage of .898 with 2 errors. His best offensive game was June 23rd in a win over the Goldeyes 12-11. He went 4 for 5, 2 runs, 4 RBIs, 2 home runs, both solo. As I wrote, he, for being an early season signing, playing in June, he only played 36 games. And that's just, I think it was just one of those that, in what we talked about all year, last year was, where were we getting the production from? Most of the production was coming from your first baseman and your third baseman, and he's that first baseman and third base. If he was a catcher, maybe he would get more roles there. I know he did play in the outfield quite a bit in the Rangers organization, but I just don't think, who were you going to replace in the outfield? You weren't going to replace Jesus Marriaga. You weren't going to replace LG Castillo. You weren't, you could have maybe Del Valle a tad bit, may have had him rotate in and out, but you weren't going to replace him at first. Tapia, maybe the offensive numbers weren't quite there, but defensively he was really well. I thought defensively Tapia played very well. And he was one of those shocks that I was like, well, I didn't get rid of him. But Nova, he was giving you the offensive production. His arm was better than it was in the 2022 season, but the lack of work ethic for him, that's why he got booted out. So then, you bring in Valera, who was probably better at the plate than Tapia was. Or not, he was a tad bit better in fielding percentage wise, but he was a lot better in the offensive production. So, where were you going to rotate him in and out of? So I think, looking at Contreras here, his OPS was 741. I mean, in this type of realm and in this type of what you're looking for, this is what I'll take. I'll take that. I'll take that OPS. I think he's going to get a better opportunity to play the field. Depending on who we soak up and who we get in is depending on where he goes. I just think he's also another player that brings depth to the lineup. And you want depth. We need the depth, and that's what we're going to get from Jose Contreras. So there was no, Lamar Rogers didn't say anything about LG Castillo or Jose Contreras or Joan Valdez. I just don't know, because it was like later in the week that they weren't able to get those quotes out to him, or he was busy doing something. So there's no quotes on them. That's why I kind of want to wait until like a full week, just so that way when they put out their articles, I get what Lamar Rogers kind of quotes about the players, so that we can understand why. But we can understand why he brought back LG Castillo. We can understand why he brought back Jose Contreras, and we'll understand why he brings back Joan Valdez. I just I guarantee he's gonna play more. I just don't think he had that consistent lineup, being in the lineup consistently, to be in that consistent role of, okay, when I play, I play. Like I said, his best game was on June 23rd. He went 4 for 5, 2 runs, 4 RBIs, and with 2 solo home runs. Like, that is the type of player that we're gonna get from him, and he's gonna give you that power. A DH role, which I'm surprised he really didn't play much of a DH role last year. But that's the type of player that we're gonna get. Looking at Joan Valdez, last season went 0 for 5, 37 games, started in 5, had an ERA 4.77, runs against average per 9 of 6.06 or 6.09, 6.09. He pitched 54.2 innings last year, 37 runs given up, 29 earned, with 29 which were earned. 9 home runs, 21 walks, struck out 58. His whip was 1.39, hits per 9 of 9.1, home runs per 9 of 1.5, walks per 9 of 3.5, and strikeouts per 9 of 9.5. His batting average against was 259, so it's about a little bit above. Every fourth batter would get a hit kind of role. Outside of the bump in the road in July for 2 games, Yoan was a solid piece for the bullpen. He was just, I think we were kind of concerned at the beginning with him, and then he kind of fell into that 6th, 7th inning, or 7th, 8th inning role, kind of competing with Vivas there, and then kind of setting it up for DJ Wilkinson. I can see him. I think he had most of the season. He didn't. He really actually from July 20th to the end of the season, basically, he didn't allow more than 1 run earned. There was 1 game where he gave up 2, but it was only 1 earned. So, like, mostly for second half of the season, I get that, may not have pitched every inning, or a lot of innings, but really only giving up 1 run, I think it was only a handful of times, is brilliant. He became a stable arm. You knew when he came in, that last half of the season, when the RailCats were up and there was 3 innings left, and Valdez, Vivas, and Wilkinson were coming in to shut the game out. It was a win. It was a definite win. It was just a matter of if they were in that situation. That back half of that bullpen was lights out, and we saw, however you wanted to rotate that up, we saw how dependable those players were. And even in games that the RailCats necessarily lost, these players were, Valdez was brought in still, nonetheless, to really help out that situation. I really think where his ERA shot up was those starts that he got. There wasn't a handful, I think 2 starts ish that were like really bad, and there was a couple relief appearances that were kind of bad. But majority of the year, when you look at that second half of the season, you see all the 1s and the 0s. This guy was outstanding. I don't see where there's much of a flaw into his game necessarily. The hits per 9 could go down a little bit. The home runs per 9 could kind of, you kind of want to see that sub 1. But his strikeouts, what really impresses me is the walks. With a 3.5, yeah, okay, you would like that lower, but walks to strikeouts, the ratio is so good. I mean, the hits, you would obviously like to see way down, but being relievers is so hard because you give up 1 hit, every inning that you pitch, you give up 1 hit. That's going to be a higher number than a starter that gives up 5 hits in 7 innings or 6. It's just one of those situations where it's kind of hard to really judge with relievers, especially their wins, losses, their ERAs. I just think an overall dependable arm Joan Valdez is. I'm glad that he's back. He's gonna help that role of pitchers. I would like to start seeing some more starters, but the bullpen obviously seems to be a primary concern with Lamar Rogers, and I can see that. I can understand that. With most of the time, the starter's only going 4 or 5 innings. You need a strong bullpen system, and I think that's what he's going to get. And you're also going to get a spot starter with Valdez, as we saw in a couple like double headers. You would see him where you didn't want to burn a starter or whatever the case may be. He would use a reliever. So in all aspects of things, the roster's filling up on that portion of him. Glad that he's back. Then on January 22nd, I don't know why I keep saying July. The RailCats re-signed Daniel Vitriago, who was traded to the RailCats from Billings, Billings in the Pioneer League on August 14th, 2023, for a player be named later. So we may see something next year where the RailCats just trade a random player to Billings because of a player to be named later to complete the contract. But most of the time, Billings may not necessarily want him, and just kind of traded him off, and whatever the case may be, or vice versa. However you want to put it. I don't know exactly how it all works out, but that's the kind of basic idea. He only played in 6 games last year. He had 1 start, a record of 0-2. He had an ERA of 7.94 in 11 innings. He struck out 15, walked 2, gave up 17 home runs, 5 home runs, 11 runs, 10 which were earned. His batting average against was 347. Had a whip of 168. Hits per 9 was 13.5. Home runs per 9 was 4. Walks 1.6. Strikeouts 11.9. His percentage for first strikes was 66%. Really, in 6 games, it's hard to say. You look at the ERA, but it was only in 6 games. He had 1 start. The 1 start was against the Chicago Dogs, which he gave up 7 runs on 10 hits in 4.1 innings. I mean, Chicago basically made it all the way. So that was, and it was towards the later half of the late portion of the season. So, and he didn't face the easiest teams. I mean, he faced Fargo twice, Milwaukee once, Chicago twice, Lake Country once. Like, he faced teams that were good. Like, it wasn't like he came in and I think the first couple games he came like, oh wow, this is really positive. And what really gets me when I look at it is the strikeouts per 9 versus the walks per 9. 11.9 to 1.6. I can throw people out. Like, he can strike people out, and he has the control, he has the accuracy. But then again, you're going to throw it in the strike zone. You're going to give up more hits, as he gave up 13.5 per 9 and 4. That's something that he may want to work on. So I think maybe next year you're going to see the walks kind of go up a little bit, because he only walked 2 people, and struck out 15 versus 2. Like, those are the numbers that you want to see, but we may see a little bit higher in the walk percentage, because he may be working more around the corners and not so much down the middle. And I think that's sometimes he was so, and that's the type of way I would be if I was a pitcher. Would be like, okay, the count's 3-2, like, I'm gonna give him something to hit, or I'm going to try. I don't want to walk him necessarily. So I'm going to throw the ball in the strike zone, and I'm going to let him try to beat me. And I think that's just the situation that we saw with Vitriago, was he's going to throw the ball in the zone, and he wants you to hit it. Or he's going to make you beat him, and he's not going to try to outsmart you necessarily. But he struck out a lot of people, so he has the arm, he has the accuracy, he has the stuff. So we're going to see a big positive from him this year. I think going into this year, having a full season behind him. I don't necessarily think that he will be towards the end of the bullpen. I think he'll be that just a relief appearances. He might get a spot start here or there, or depending on what he does during the season. We should expect high numbers as far as strikeouts, maybe not a lot of walks. So maybe he'll be the situation guy that, if the bases are loaded, you have 1 out, he's going to be brought in to have the ball put in play or strike a player out, whatever the case may be, and not have that fear that he's going to walk the batter that he sees, which I think something like that kind of happened last year with the RailCats. Was, you may have a runner on first and third, 1 out, pitcher comes in and walks 2 and they score a run. Like, you're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna see that. If you do see that, it's gonna be very rare for him. Like I said, also small sample size. Not 100% positive how that's all gonna roll out. But yeah, I think that the roster's coming together. You know, it's starting to pick up more. We're starting to get players coming in that are being signed, that are returning. You know, it's starting to fit the mold. You know, I think that what we're gonna see, what we're gonna see from Lamar Rogers is that if it is a player that is returning and he doesn't have much experience with the RailCats, a later bit signing, I think he is a guy, or is going to be a guy that has the work ethic, has something to prove, that is going to be brought in, like Daniel Vitriago, who may not have got a full opportunity, so he's going to bring him back. If it's a guy that's been with the RailCats for a handful of years, it's his ability for his work ethic, and he has that production. So I think we're gonna start seeing more players, probably newer players being signed, but I'm not 100% positive what kind. I mean, obviously they're gonna need to find a second baseman. You're probably gonna need another. You're probably gonna need a third baseman, and you probably need another outfielder. And then you're gonna fill in the starting rotation. So it's coming together. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together. It's just going to be interesting to see where all the pieces lie within each other. Yet again, it looks like it's going to be another promising season with players that are going to give it every effort that you have. I guess effort is the only thing that you can kind of look at right now and say the numbers are going to be numbers, but are you going to give me, 100% play every time you hit the field? Now, not necessarily that every time that someone plays, like, they're going to give you 100%. Like, people go through mental lapses, they go through struggles, or the case may be, but I'm just saying the effort is going to be there. The effort of not necessarily what you do on the field, but what you do off the field. And that's something that we're going to see, hopefully a better mesh amongst the players. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Like I said, I'm still going to work on trying to get the podcast up onto the website. So it'll kind of be like, it'll be like a post so that you can click on it, and then I'll have off a little section off will be like a podcast section. So you can just go back, and if you missed one, go through all those and read all the articles. And like I said, the website is still, it's very basic, mundane, not really, up there and how everything's kind of works itself out. So it's all work in progress, but eventually I'll just have one link for everything where you can read through all my posts, or the articles that I have, and all the podcasts right there, so you don't have to keep jumping around, and I'll have links. So I still need to know where you guys want me to, how you want me to upload the podcast, to Spotify or YouTube. Probably more YouTube, just because I think that's just easy for everyone. It's free. You don't have to worry about ads or whatever the case may be. I guess you may still have to worry about ads. I don't put ads on my videos, but I know YouTube, if you don't have YouTube Premium, you still have to pay for ads. So I don't know how it's all going to work out. I'll figure all that stuff out later. But for me, that's going to do it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, or whenever you're watching this, and go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Wrap this one up in green.